When you first look at the Horch 901, it doesn't try to impress you in a flashy way. There's no elegance like a luxury car, no aggressive styling like a sports machine. Instead, it gives off something much more serious, the feeling of a tool built with one purpose, to go anywhere, anytime, no questions asked. And honestly, if this vehicle could talk, it probably wouldn't tell jokes. It would just quietly remind you that it has seen things. The story of the Horch 901 begins in the mid-1930s, at a time when Germany was rapidly rebuilding and modernizing its military. The Army needed something very specific, not just cars, but standardized, highly capable off-road vehicles that could operate reliably in all conditions. Mud, snow, sand, broken roads, it didn't matter. The goal was simple in theory, but difficult in practice. Create a vehicle that could handle war before war actually began. That's how the Einheits PKW program was born, a standardized vehicle platform, and the Horch 901 became one of its most important results. From the outside, the design looks fairly straightforward: a boxy body, high ground clearance, large wheels, and a soft canvas top. But underneath that simplicity was some surprisingly advanced engineering for the time. One of the key features was independent suspension on all four wheels, combined with full-time all-wheel drive. Now that might sound normal today, but in the late 1930s, this was a big deal. Most vehicles still used rigid axles and struggled off-road. The Horch, on the other hand, could keep its wheels planted on uneven terrain much more effectively. It didn't just drive over bad roads, it adapted to them. You could say it was less like a car and more like something that refused to admit defeat. Under the hood, things were equally serious. Early versions were equipped with a 3.5-liter V8 gasoline engine producing about 80 horsepower derived from civilian Horch models. Later versions upgraded to a 3.8-liter V8 with around 90 horsepower. Now, 80 to 90 horsepower moving a vehicle that weighed around 5,950 pounds might not sound impressive. And yeah, this wasn't fast in the modern sense, but it didn't need to be. This engine wasn't about speed, it was about torque, reliability, and the ability to keep going when conditions got ugly. And let's be honest, if you're driving through mud up to the axles, you don't care about top speed. You care about whether you're still moving. Power was sent to all four wheels through a manual transmission, and the driving experience was exactly what you'd expect from something built in that era. Heavy steering, mechanical feedback, and no unnecessary comfort. Turning the Horch 901 wasn't difficult, but it required effort. You felt everything: the terrain, the weight, the resistance. There was no power steering here, no electronic assistance, just you, the wheel, and a machine that expected you to know what you were doing. Interestingly, early versions had a rather unusual feature: 2 additional spare wheels mounted on the sides of the vehicle, which could actually act as support wheels when crossing difficult terrain. Yes, you read that right. Imagine driving over a deep ditch and suddenly those spare wheels helping you not get stuck. It's one of those ideas that sounds slightly crazy, but also kind of brilliant. Later versions dropped this system because it complicated the design and reduced interior space, but still, you have to respect the creativity. Speaking of interior, don't expect luxury. This wasn't built to be comfortable, it was built to be functional. The driver and front passenger had separate seats, while the rear typically featured a narrow bench for 2 or 3 people. The layout was simple, durable, and easy to maintain. Materials were basic, controls were straightforward, and everything was designed with one idea in mind: it should keep working no matter what. That said, there were exceptions. Some versions, especially those used by high-ranking officers, were actually more refined. The KFZ-21 variant, for example, had a more comfortable interior and a body style closer to a civilian car. So yes, technically you could have a slightly more comfortable Horch 901, but let's be realistic. Comfort was still not the main priority here. The suspension system deserves another mention because it played a huge role in how this vehicle behaved. Independent suspension meant each wheel could move separately, which improved traction and stability on rough terrain. Combined with about 9.4 inches of ground clearance, the Horch could handle obstacles that would stop most vehicles of its time. Top speed was around 71 miles per hour, which is honestly faster than you'd expect for something that looks like it belongs permanently covered in mud. But again, speed wasn't the mission. The mission was reliability, and in that regard, the Horch delivered. Production ran from 1937 to 1943, with nearly 20,000 units built across different manufacturers, including Horch, Wanderer, and Opel. And during World War II, this vehicle was everywhere, used for troop transport, communication units, command vehicles, and more. If you look at historical photos from that period, chances are you'll see one. But here's the interesting part. Despite all its engineering, the Horch 901 wasn't perfect. In fact, it was considered somewhat over-engineered and complex, which made maintenance in field conditions more difficult than expected. That's one of the reasons why simpler vehicles like the Volkswagen Kübelwagen eventually became more popular. Sometimes less really is more. Now, about where these vehicles are today. The Horch 901 didn't just disappear after the war. Many were lost, of course, but a number of them survived and are now preserved in museums and private collections around the world. You can find restored examples in places like the Auto and Technik Museum Sinsheim, as well as other military and automotive museums across Europe. Some are even still operational, appearing at historical reenactments and exhibitions, which is honestly a bit surreal considering the history behind them. And that brings us to something important. This isn't just a vehicle, it's a piece of history, a very complicated one. Because when you look at the Horch 901 today, you're not just looking at engineering, you're looking at a machine that was part of a global conflict, used in real conditions by real people during one of the most difficult periods in human history. And yet, from a purely technical perspective, it's fascinating. It represents a moment when engineers pushed boundaries, tried new ideas, and created something that was genuinely advanced for its time, even if it wasn't perfect. So yeah, it's not fast, not comfortable, and definitely not simple, but it's honest. And sometimes that's what makes a vehicle truly interesting. If you're into rare military vehicles, strange engineering solutions, and machines with real history behind them, you're in the right place. There's a lot more coming, and trust me, some of them are even more unusual than this one.